got a great guest for you this week. My guest today is Matt Isakow. He's the play-by-play voice of York Lions basketball, and we got to talk to him about all things York. So here that is right now. All right, and joining me today, the play-by-play voice of the York Lions men's and women's basketball team, Matt Isakow. Matt, thanks so much for coming on the OUA basketball show. It's great to talk to you again.
Man, thanks for having me out here. It's always fun talking basketball, and I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, well, I've been trying to have more people who cover the teams on the shows to go along with the athletes and coaches. So you've been doing commentary up at York for a couple years now. Why don't you tell us a little bit about like your role there, how long you've been with the basketball team?
Yeah, so I started with the basketball team out last season, so it's been a bit of an up and down stretch in terms of quality of play there, but it really seems like things are promising this year. I like what they're doing on both the men's and women's side, and they've been a pleasure to work with. I'm really enjoying my time there.
Yeah, well, you're a fantastic commentator. It's always fun to watch the games from York University there. So I guess that is where we'll start with just the general outline around the program, because I think anyone who follows OUA basketball will tell you that TMU is the premier basketball program in the city of Toronto right now and have been for the last few years. But between U of T and York, I feel like there's space to be claimed to join TMU as that sort of second Toronto basketball school. And there's some exciting stuff going on at York. Why don't we start on the men's side there? We were talking a little bit before the interview. You were telling me how excited you are for the men's team this year. They've got some really promising talent.
Yeah, I think York had that upper hand over U of T a couple of years ago, and then they kind of hit a wall last year where they had a lot of players leave, and they were working with a much younger team, and all of their vets from last year's team are gone as well, and Liam Reich and Trayvon Hamilton and Elias Panagiotopoulos. So you come into this year, and I don't want to say concerned, but I didn't really know what was next for this team. That when I came into the program was kind of introduced me as like, hey, this isn't our soccer team, but this is a pretty good team. And this year they really took a jump up. They brought in Jeremiah Quarding, who's just been outstanding for them at the point guard position, almost like I don't want to call him a Kiara Leverage on the men's side, but he kind of has.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
He's able to score almost at will. He takes a bunch of shots, but he has a great shot. He attacks the basket. Great defensively, had 5 steals in the win over McMaster last weekend. And he's just complemented well with some shooters around. He's got Malachi Ayers-Olsen, who's taken a big leap this year. Jonathan Rivera has stepped up in the paint big time. And then you add in guys like Kevin Okeke. This is a team that wasn't much of a threat to shoot the 3-ball last season. They built that into the team this year, and it's noticeable through the first 2 games. And I think they're going to have a much stronger year than they did last year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously every program wants to be able to shoot the 3, so that's great to hear that that's a big step for them this year. What do you think? I mean, obviously you're observing the team. You sometimes, as an OUA commentator, you're a little more outside in than you would like to be at a different level. But what do you think they are looking at as like a successful season this year? Is it a playoff year in their minds?
Yeah, I think this is a playoff year because, looking at last year, I mentioned how young they were, and I kind of looked at it as a bit more of a development year. You're going to go through those ebbs and flows in college programs just because not the transfer rate, but like the return rate isn't always where you want it to be. And as you get more experience, you have higher expectations. This is a very experienced team now. They've got a bunch of people up in their third and, older years in terms of university sport. It's not so many freshmen and sophomores. And even then, those freshmen and sophomore aren't seeing much playing time. I think it's really just Jackson McKinnon, Metcalf, and a couple others. So they've got the talent offensively, like I mentioned in Quarding. Defensively, I would have thought that they would have felt the presence of Liam, or the loss of Liam Reichen, he was up there in the U Sports leaders and blocks, played up in the CBL, and is now playing overseas. That's tough to replace, but Jonathan Rivera has truly stepped up, and even N'Keal Harris, those guys have the ability to defend the paint, which is so important in the men's game, the way that guys like to attack the basket. So I think playoffs are within reach, and that's the expectation there at York this season.
100%. Well, that'll be an exciting year. Looking forward to watching that men's team and keeping an eye on some of those names. We'll jump over to the women's side here, who had a solid season last year. They finished 7-15. They were on that sort of playoff bubble right down to the end of the season. And I think everyone around campus and around the program, York fans all across the province, were excited to see that Kiara Leverage back for another season. She's obviously the star of that team, but there's more to that team than just Leverage. But why don't we start with her? We had her on the show last year, a fantastic player. What are you seeing from Kiara Leverage? We're 2 games into this season for York.
Well, firstly, I do want to point out that last year, like despite 7-15, they were a shot away from getting into the postseason. They had a buzzer
Literally,
there,
yeah.
a chance at the buzzer in their last game of the year, and couldn't convert. That was the difference between making and missing the playoffs. What's impressed me so far about this York side on the women's side of things is that they're doing this. They're off to a 1-1 start, obviously. But they're playing good basketball in spite of the fact that Kiara Leverage isn't playing her best basketball right now. Last year, York went as Kiara Leverage when we saw her drop 37, some games with 20 rebounds and 20 points, just out of this world stuff. And which only goes to put in perspective how great Maddie Weiner was last year,
Yeah,
truly as the OUA
literally.
MVP. And she's returned to form as well, but you'll bring in the Brock commentator to talk about her. Leverage just started really slow. I think that first game, she only had 9 points. She's averaging 14, very out of character stuff for her. But we're seeing other players in York step up. Ella Okubasu had a great first game of the season. I think she had a double-double in her last game, the win against against Waterloo, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh no, win
No, it
against
wasn't
Mac.
McMaster. Waterloo was week 1. Sorry.
Yeah.
So she doubled in that game, despite the fact that she was dealing with foul trouble early and missed a bunch of their first game. So she's taken a big leap. Katie Ludi didn't get much playing time last year. Now she's looking like she's going to be a regular in the rotation. She's got the ability to shoot threes. She's good with the ball in her hands. And they've just got other players that I'm still expecting to take leaps. We saw Alexis Graywall get a lot of playing time last year and make a positive impact. And she's really still, I don't want to say easing her way back, but she didn't play much game 1. Started getting some more quality minutes in game 2, and I expect her role to rise as the season moves on.
Yeah, exciting stuff. And I think, like you said, a shot away from the playoffs last year. Their star player, maybe in the conversation for second best player in the OUA, because I think, as you mentioned, that the number one is pretty locked up there. I think it's another, in my personal opinion, another sort of year where they want to make that next leap. They want to be a playoff team. And it's some exciting stuff in Northern Toronto going on the basketball court this year. You can catch all of Matt's games on OUA.tv. Matt, thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate getting to talk to you.
My pleasure. It was a blast.
Thanks again to Matt for stopping by the show. Great to get the chance to talk to him. Always love getting to talk to the people who cover these teams. Hopefully we can get a little more of that for you guys this year, because that's a really fun change of pace, I think, from the players and the coaches who are also great to talk to.